Football is here for the Georgia Bulldogs. We don't know everything about this Georgia team heading into 2025. In fact, I actually think that's a big theme of the offseason is there's a lot of mystery with the Dogs. More transfer players than normal, a lot of transition on the defense and offensive lines, and new quarterback heading into the season. So I think that there's a ton of mystery. That means we have some questions for Georgia that I think have gone unanswered so far. Maybe they don't have the answers for themselves as a program. Maybe Kirby Smart doesn't quite know yet. That's what fall camp is for, and fall camp is here. So I've got 4 burning questions I want to discuss with you that we're going to try to sift through and figure out about Georgia over the next few weeks before they get after it against Marshall to open up their season on August 30th. Now, they might not have all the answers themselves to these questions when that first game rolls around, but I think that they are important questions for Georgia. I think that these are things that we don't necessarily know the exact answers to, and I think that they might be learning themselves during September. It might not be things that they have figured out in August. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. Make sure you're checking out the website. Written version of this story is already over there. If you're saying this on Thursday, I'm going to get to see some practice on Thursday. Going to see these players get after it. I will do my best. My best. They only give us 10-ish, maybe 15 minutes in there to gather as much information as possible and try to figure out as much as I possibly can. But here are the things that I don't know and some things I'm going to look at on Thursday and the rest of this fall camp. Just things that we need to figure out for Georgia. What does the running back pecking order look like? Okay, right? Nate Frazier's RB1, but I don't know that we know much about behind him. We know that they've got versatility and they've got all sorts of different weapons. We know that they brought Josh McCray in from the transfer portal. I think that if they're healthy, this is a group that should improve this coming season, especially if Frazier improves. But we know that Frazier's likely RB1. We know that this is a guy that maybe will take 15 to 20 carries in a game in some of these games, if not a lot of them. What do they have behind him? Let's think about it this way, real quick. Cash Jones is going to play his role. He's going to play his receiving role. He's going to get out there. And this will be the last year of Cash Jones for the Georgia Bulldogs. They've got Roderick Robinson, who's seemingly healthy, right, at this point in the season. But yet they go and they bring in Josh McCray from the portal from Illinois. A guy had over 600 yards, 10 touchdowns, was the MVP of their bowl game last season. An experienced senior. It's on his last year of eligibility. I don't think that he came to Athens to not play. So how do they handle the Robinson-McCray dynamic as the power back? Because they kind of are going to play similar roles. Big, heavy, downhill running back that breaks tackles is probably going to be good in goal line and short yardage situations. How do they handle those snaps? Because I don't think they brought in McCray to not play. So they've got their power situation between Roderick Robinson and Josh McCray. They've got the receiving back in Cash Jones, and you got your kind of do-it-all back that you trust on 3 downs in Nate Frazier. Who is the next guy? I don't think that, first of all, I don't know that all that's figured out, but after that, there aren't many snaps for the trio of Chauncey Bowens, Dwight Phillips Jr., and Bo Walker. Chauncey Bowens and Dwight Phillips Jr. from last year's class. Bo Walker, a true freshman this season. Based off of my eyes and kind of what I know, I thought that Bowens looked like a guy that could get touches for Georgia this season. I thought he looked really good at G-Day. Thought he showed flashes. Dwight Phillips Jr. is the fastest of this group. Maybe they figure out a way to use him on jet sweeps and kind of trick plays. But Bo Walker got the most buzz during the spring. Will any of those 3 crack playing time? I think is a good question if the other 4 have a role or if they're fighting for a role. And if this is not going to be a committee running style, and if Frazier's like this clear RB1, which I don't really think is the case, I think you're going to see a split of touches, then there aren't going to be many touches for these 3. I think it's a big question. What does this look like behind Nate Frazier? Second question I have for Georgia in fall camp, we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball. We'll go flip-flop here, is in the secondary. My question is about the secondary. My question, more specifically, is about the cornerbacks. Jalen Everett, starter on one side. Who's the starter on the other side? They were competing, right? There was a competition during the spring for that. Is that competition still ongoing? Now, if you ask Kirby, it's a competition all the time, and I get it, and it's a competition every single day in practice. I get it, but Is Daniel Harris still the leader in the clubhouse to be the starting corner? My answer is probably yes, right? A year older, right? This will be year 3 for him. He has more playing experience, and he looked to be in the lead to be the starter among the 3 of them. The 3 of them being Ellis Robinson, the 4th, and DeMello Jones, the other 2 guys he was competing with during the spring. Daniel Harris looked to get the most first-team reps from what I saw, and also just kind of played the best at G-Day. Now, that's just one scrimmage. I had other scrimmages during the game, during the spring, but during the public scrimmage, it was Daniel Harris that shined and showed, hey, I could be, a lockdown corner. I can definitely guard as a bigger corner. He could definitely guard bigger wide receivers. People will be disappointed if Ellis Robinson doesn't get on the field. Now, I think he will get on the field. What I think is going to happen is something similar to last year, maybe the last couple of years, is especially at the early going of the season, they're going to rotate that corner spot, right? Ellis Robinson's going to get in there a little bit probably. DeMello Jones will get his chance, especially those first 2 games where they're playing Marshall and Austin Peay early in the season. That'll be a good opportunity for them to rotate those players in. I think that you see that. And then maybe things are figured out by the time they go up to Knoxville in week 3. But I think Daniel Harris is probably the guy, but Jones and Robinson the 4th were competing, and you got to remember Robinson the 4th is one of the highest rated players ever. Is that talent going to equate to getting on the field in production? I think it's a good question, and when you have a player like that, how long do you keep him in the woodshed? I don't think it'll be for long. I think you'll see all 3 of them play, but Daniel Harris certainly the leader to be the starter. We'll flip back to offense, and then we'll go back to defense. So back to the offensive side of the ball, the people protecting the quarterback, how is this offensive line going to fall into place? I think that there are kind of 4 penciled in starters, maybe penned in even. Players that have played, they have experience, they have starting experience because Georgia's had injuries and Georgia likes to rotate on the offensive line. They lost 4 starters, but there are 4 guys who have played because of what I just said a second ago. Micah Morris, 5th-year player at guard, he's a starter. Drew Bobo, center, he's a starter. Ernest Green, the 3rd tackle, he's a starter. I think Monroe Freeling's a starter too at the other tackle position, and we'll see which side each of them plays on. But all of those guys have played, all of those guys have started, all of them have rotated in. They've all been around for at least 2 seasons before this. I think that they're starters. Now, that means there's one other spot. And during the spring, it was Daniel Calhoun, 2nd-year guy, who was the leader in the clubhouse to be the starting guard opposite of Micah Morris. Is that still the case? Because he ended up dealing with a lower body injury that held him out for a good bit of the spring. We didn't get to see him at G-Day. Those are reps lost, right? Michael Uni, John Jackson was another guy that was competing before he just got in trouble recently. There are a lot of guys on the defensive line. Malachi Tolliver was competing. Is Daniel Calhoun going to kind of retain that spot that it looked like he was winning in the spring? Or will someone else step up and take that from him when he lost reps? It'll be interesting. Georgia's 2024 recruiting class was filled with highly rated, gigantic offensive linemen. Daniel Calhoun's one of them. Uni's the other. They've got a couple of other ones. Will any of those guys compete? I think the older players will probably start. It's what you typically see in the Georgia Bulldogs system. But I don't know if these pieces are all in place quite yet. And I think you'll see rotating no matter what, kind of similar to the cornerbacks. Back to defense, and we'll round it out with the defensive front. I've said multiple times this offseason, I've said it on a riding home recently. I think I said it during spring football. The biggest mystery to me is Georgia's defensive front. They're replacing a ton of talent, right? And some of that talent are like studs. Not like studs, they are studs. They are Jalen Walker and Michael Williams and players like that. Out with the old, in with the new. A lot of younger and inexperienced players in the defensive front. Christian Miller is heading into year 4. He is the most experienced. He's expected to play well. But do they have a star in this front? And I'm calling the front, the line, and the edge rushers right now. Guys that get after the quarterback or have their hands in the dirt is how I'm classifying that for this purpose. Right, because Jalen Walker obviously was a pass rusher. Chaz Chambliss was a productive pass rusher for Georgia. Mike Williams, a very productive defensive lineman. they got to replace that. And then they need a star. They need someone that can either shore up the line or get after the quarterback or do both. They had Trayvon Walker, and then they had Michael Williams. Who is going to play that role? There are a few candidates. Joseph Jonah-Ajonye, second-year player out of Texas, is probably the leading candidate to be a starting defensive end for Georgia and play that versatile defensive end role. But they got Isaiah Gibson. They've got Darren Ickenogban, true freshman. They've got some other players. They've got depth. Is it going to be Ajonye? Is Jordan Hall in the interior? Does he finally have the perfect combination of health and opportunity now to be the highly ranked 5-star that he was in the 2023 class? All right. Warren Brinson is your Stackhouse man, the middle for Georgia last year. Doesn't mean it can't improve from that. They were late round draft picks, right? And undrafted free agent types of players. Can Christian Miller and Jordan Hall be better than on the inside? Or can one of them be a star? I think that the transfer Elamadozi from Army has an opportunity to be a star. I think that the opportunity is there for him. The snaps are there for him. They need a star in this front. All right, they've got him in the linebacker room. They've got him in the defensive back room. But if you have a star at all three levels or just a lot of great depth, things usually work out. And we talked about how important defense was earlier in this week and how much the Georgia's defense has dropped off, right, from the previous 3 seasons. Can they get back to that? They won't be able to do that without a star in the front seven. And I think it's interesting to see whether or not one will present itself. It's not going to necessarily present itself during fall camp, but it's a question that's on my mind, right? We know that they're replacing some of these players. I think that some of these players are going to be really good. They're just younger and inexperienced guys. Are any of them stars? I don't know. Is Gabe Harris a star? Sometimes you wonder if they were so, if these guys are so good, why didn't they play over some of the older players? Well, a lot of the older players are really good, but people think there's going to be an improvement on the interior. Why weren't they playing more beforehand? You know what I mean? So there are different angles you can take with this. I think that Georgia is set up nicely in terms of talent. Someone's just got to break out and be a guy for them, a dude, not a Nakobe, but on the line, like a Michael Williams, right? Do they have that talent, that first-round pick type of talent? I think it's a legit question that they're still trying to figure out themselves. They'll be doing that during fall camp. Make sure you're keeping up with us over the next 6 months. Football's back. Football's back, and I appreciate you watching.